nice. It looked pretty creepy, don't you think? I wonder what kind of birds live in them, no? I've always been a bit afraid of swans, you know. Hello. Are you making a documentary or something?
Yes, of you.
Yeah. Look at this. This is a perfect skipping stone. So I bet you I can get maybe 20 skips on the water with this stone. What do you think? Are you getting this?
Yeah.
Okay. I might have overestimated my powers. Do you know if this... I always wonder if this works, you know, pointing into the sky. It shouldn't work, right? When I was a kid I always tried to get a signal by pointing the phone somewhere, but...
It didn't work?
Well, it didn't work now, that's for sure. It's dead. There's no reception. Do you think it's cold?
Somewhat.
What the fuck is that? Man, that did not sound like an airplane.
Of course it is.
Yeah, it sounds really strange, don't you agree?
But it's...
I don't know what, but something is off.
That's nice.
And that sound was not normal. Hey Martin!
What?
Check this out, man! I told you something felt weird, and now I find this.
Okay.
Are you seeing what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Come.
but...
There's a message in a bottle right here. Oh man! This is so awesome! Ah! Okay, that's stuck. Ah! Okay, let's see if I can get this out. Well, this is stuck in here. Oh, finally. Well, it smells old, but they look new. Seems to be as... Oh, listen to this, man. Listen to this. As I write this, I'm trapped on Brick Island.
What was it called?
Brick Island. Have you heard about that?
No.
This guy is claiming, he's saying that he's trapped on that island. Trapped. Okay,
I don't get it. It's a story, or...
No, it's some guy. Some guy.
Just read it, okay?
Okay, I will read it, okay? As I write this, I'm trapped on Brick Island. I realized I made a mistake. I was a fool from the very beginning. I know that now. I'm pretty sure no one can help me. Please don't try. In fact, whatever you do, stay as far away as possible from either Brick Island or Goat Island. Goat Island? Huh. If I'm truly gone when you find this message, don't come looking for me. Just stay away. I only want you to know what happened to me so that you might learn from my mistakes. Shit, man, do you think this is serious? Okay, I'll just read this, okay?
Do it. Is it long?
Yeah, it's like 13 pages or something. Alright, so... It all started before summer break. My friends only hang out with me because they wanted to spend the summer at my parents' house in the Stockholm archipelago. On some subconscious level, I knew it from the beginning. But I had been too alone for far too long, and I was too happy to not be alone anymore, to face that soul-crushing fact. And I was in love with Cecilia. Although her best friend Rebecca would have sworn it wasn't true, we all knew that Cecilia was the most beautiful girl in our entire school. To have ended up in the same group of friends as her was enough for me to be happy about my situation, no matter what horrible things the rest of the group said about me behind my back. Except for Cecilia and Rebecca, there was Thomas and Sebastian. When compared to them, It became clear I didn't really fit in. I looked tiny next to them, almost as if I was their little brother, even though we were the same age. I guess you could say they were jocks while I was nothing more than your typical shy geek. It was Sebastian that approached me, a few weeks before summer break. He asked me to sit with them in the school's dining room. I had no idea what that was all about. I thought it was just messing with me. After all, it wouldn't have been the first time. Hesitantly, I sat down with them. And to my surprise, they seemed to welcome me. I really didn't get it, but I wasn't going to question it. Cecilia was finally looking at me, for the first time. And I have to admit, although I had never liked Thomas or Sebastian, it felt kinda good to be seen with them. A few days later, when Rebecca inconspicuously asked me about my family's house in the archipelago, I was happy... Wait, I'm just gonna put the papers down here. I was happy to tell them all about it. I showed them pictures of the large house and the island on my phone. Cecilia suddenly got enthusiastic and suggested we all spend some time there together during summer break. I was overwhelmed. It all seemed to happen in such a natural and unplanned manner. Cecilia was always kind to me during these days. I didn't really feel like Thomas and Sebastian saw me as an equal. They still teased me a little, although jokingly, and they kept interrupting me and talking over my head. But Cecilia was different. She seemed to actually care about me. She smiled at me. Sometimes she even told Sebastian to be nicer to me when he was teasing me. She was also the one who added me to their group conversation on Messenger. Wait, so this is like recently, right? I mean the phone, the Messenger app. She was also the one who added me to their group conversation on Messenger, which I saw as a step into being accepted by them as one of the gang. Because of how she behaved towards me, a theory formed in my mind. I thought that maybe Cecilia had fallen in love with me, just as I had fallen in love with her, and that it was she who had asked Sebastian to invite me over to their table. This was nothing more than wishful thinking, but it made me feel hope for the first time in my entire pathetic life, so I desperately clung to it. We arrived at the island at the beginning of June, when there weren't many other people there. There were only a few people living on the island year-round. The rest came during their vacations and only stayed over the summer. My parents trusted me since I had never done anything to make them worry about me, and they were happy to give me the key to the house. They were probably just happy that I had finally found some friends. Before we boarded the boat that took us to the island, my parents waved us off. If they had any worries, Cecilia's comforting smile and kind words surely put them at ease. Everything was good, perfect I would say, to start. My friends loved the island and the fact that there was almost nobody there. Cecilia said it reminded her of a fairy tale. I had never thought about the island like that before, but with her on it, I could see what she meant. I considered saying this to her in private at some point, but of course I didn't dare to in the end. Rebecca was the only one who didn't seem pleased. Rebecca mostly complained about the bugs. Luckily, her negative attitude didn't spread to the others. I felt like their appreciation of the island, and later the house, reflected back on me, and I finally felt like I mattered to someone as a human being. Sebastian and Thomas took the master bedroom as soon as they entered the house, which annoyed me a little since I thought the girls ought to have it and that I should have been the one deciding it, given that it was my house and all. However, I didn't complain. Cecilia and Rebecca seemed happy enough to sleep in the room next to Sebastian and Thomas. The only bed left for me was the one in the guest room on the second floor. It didn't bother me that much that I had to sleep there. I didn't think it mattered where I slept, since all the fun would take place while we were awake anyway. When we said goodnight to each other that first night, it was like all the sadness I had experienced all of my life was gone. But a while later, after we had all gone to bed, the first sign that everything might not have been as perfect as I thought happened. The house was old, built as a summer villa in the 1800s, and the walls were thin. Hence, while lying on the hard bed in the guest room of my own house, I could clearly hear how Cecilia and Rebecca sneaked into Thomas and Sebastian's room. I couldn't hear anything they said, but I could hear them talk and laugh. I could hear them having fun, without me. I tried to convince myself that there wasn't anything strange about it. They had known each other much longer than they had known me, and the girls probably went to the guy's room on a whim and thought I was asleep. Yet I couldn't help feeling omitted. It made some of my sadness come back. A part of me wanted to cry while I lay awake on that uncomfortable bed, unable to sleep, listening to their joyful voices. At one moment, I thought I heard them say my name, after which they all laughed. But I couldn't be sure. I didn't dare to bring it up the next day. I just pretended I hadn't heard anything. From time to time, during breakfast, they looked at each other as if they shared a secret I wasn't supposed to know. I asked them if they had slept well, and they all said they had. Cecilia still smiled at me, though, and kept being just as nice as before. Because of that, I soon forgot about my worries. During the rest of that day, everything went okay. I showed them the rest of the island. It wasn't that big, and took them to the small beach on the other side of it. Cecilia said the island in front of the beach, maybe 500 meters out, was scary. It was covered with a dark coniferous forest, and when she described it as she did, I understood what she meant. "It's called Goat Island," I said. "It's uninhabited." I didn't feel ignored anymore, but I didn't exactly feel included either. I still had fun though. We played some soccer on the meadow in the center of the island, and although Thomas and Sebastian teased me for being bad at playing, I actually enjoyed myself. Cecilia didn't do much to defend me anymore, but I didn't take much notice of that. I was still clinging on to that hope. During the night, the same thing that had happened the night before happened again. This continued for 2 more days. On the 3rd day, while at the beach, I was sitting on a piece of driftwood by myself. The others were swimming. Cecilia shouted to me in her carefree voice, "Why are you just sitting there? Join us!" I wanted to, but I was too self-conscious about my body to wear only my swimming trunks in front of them. I didn't want them, especially Cecilia, to see my pale, slender body. I was too ashamed of how weak I looked in comparison to Thomas and Sebastian. I smiled, trying to look confident, and shouted back that I preferred the sun before the water. She didn't respond. I looked at her. She had a pink bikini on. With a heavy heart, I asked myself if I was ever going to be allowed to touch her, or someone like her. The thought made me a bit sad, and I looked away. Lost in my melancholic thoughts, I stared into the dark forest on the island in front of us. Suddenly, some of the taller pines in the middle of the island shook violently, and a murder of crowds flew away from them, cawing loudly. I stood up and walked down to the water. What the hell was that? I stood there for several minutes, not knowing what I was looking for among those dark trees. Then, right before I was going to turn around, something appeared on the cliffs of Goat Island. My first thought was that it was a large dog. However, it was difficult to say for sure since it was so far away. "Hey guys," I said, but I didn't get their attention. They had returned to the beach by now, putting their towels on the sand and to sunbath on. I realized it couldn't be a dog when I compared it to the tree trunks behind it. It was huge! A feeling of unease came over me as I watched the creature silently walk closer to the water. Was it a bear? I knew that bears didn't live in this part of the country, and especially not on small islands in the archipelago. And yet, it was the only animal that came close to looking like that thing. Suddenly, Rebecca let out a scream as Thomas sprinkled some water on her. The creature must have heard it. It stopped in its track and looked right at us. It wasn't a bear. In a fraction of a second, my feeling of unease turned into terror. No, it definitely wasn't a bear. It was something else. It looked at us with large red glowing eyes. What the fuck? Wait. I didn't have time to call out to my friends before it jumped off the cliff and disappeared under the surface of the water. "Run!" I yelled while I ran up to my friends. "We need to get the fuck out of here." Sebastian laughed. "What are you about, mate?" "No, what are you on about, mate?" Listen, I said. There was this... Frantically, I looked for words to use. "Calm down," Cecilia said. "You look terrified." I am. Holy shit. I don't know how to explain this, but just listen, okay? There's something swimming towards us right now, and we need to run back to the house. "You need to chill the fuck out," Sebastian said. "What is swimming where now?" I didn't think they would believe me if I told them what I had actually seen, so all I said was that it was something that looked like a bear. "Well, where is it?" asked Rebecca, as she looked out over the water. "I don't see anything." "It's under the water. It went straight down under the surface. Can we please not debate this here and just get away from here?" "It had these red eyes and they were fucking glowing." I shouldn't have said that last bit. Thomas and Sebastian laughed. "You're pulling our legs," Sebastian said. "No." I had never yelled at him before, and I could see on his face that he didn't take it well. He took a step towards me and looked down on me with a threatening stare. "You are scaring the girls. It's not funny anymore, so I suggest you just stop," he told me. It was almost as if I could feel the creature getting closer and closer for every second. I looked at the calm surface with a frantic gaze. "I'm serious, come on guys, why the fuck would I make something like this up?" "I don't know," Sebastian said and looked at the others before he continued. "Probably because you are jealous of us having fun without you. Now, you just desperately want our attention." No, I didn't know what else to say. "There's no fucking monster, you fucking idiot," Thomas said. "Listen to yourself, it's insane." "Just go back to the house," Rebecca said. "You clearly don't want to be here anyway." "Cecilia," I said, "you believe me, don't you?" She looked at me with pity in her eyes. "Cecilia, please, come back to the house with me." I teared up while speaking, making it obvious to all of them how I felt about her. This secret was out. I didn't care though, I was panicking. She didn't respond, but I thought I could see some uncertainty in her eyes. I walked over to her and reached for her hand, hoping she would let me take her back with me. But she quickly backed away, and her expression became one of disgust. At that moment, my terror-stricken heart was broken. "Hey, don't touch her, man!" Sebastian pushed me back and laid his hand around the shoulders of Cecilia. Of course. How could I have been so stupid? I stepped back, crying. Then I turned around, walked a few steps, and ran faster than I've ever run before. I ran and ran and ran. When I came to the meadow at the center of the island, from where the water couldn't be seen anymore, I heard something that made my blood freeze. My friends were screaming in pure horror. I stopped immediately. For a few seconds, I just stood there, listening to them. I couldn't tell if it was Rebecca or Cecilia, but one of them suddenly screamed louder than the others, and then her scream suddenly cut short, making everyone else scream even more. Eventually, the others' screams died out too. I started running again, thinking whatever got to them might try to find me. When I came back to the house, I locked all the doors and closed all the windows. After that, I made sure there were no lights on. This made me feel a little bit safer, but I was still panicked. I went to the bedroom where the girls had slept and sat myself down in the corner of the room. I didn't know what to do. Seeing Cecilia's bags on the floor, only partly unpacked, made me tear up again. The room soon filled with the orange glow from the setting sun. Everything was silent. Too silent. I should have heard the birds at least, but all I could hear was the sound of my own frightened heart. Soon the orange glow from the setting sun was replaced by the bluish light from the sky that would remain until dawn. The night before I had hated living so close to the Arctic Circle that the night never fully became night, so that I couldn't fall asleep, but at this moment I felt blessed by it. I don't know how long I sat there before I did anything, but after some time had passed, when it seemed as if nothing had followed me, I decided to call for help. Afraid of making a sound, I reached for my phone and called the emergency service center. However, I couldn't get a signal. I tried over and over again for what felt like more than an hour. The landline had been removed a few years back, when my family had switched to mobile phones instead, to clear the area of the telephone wires. This meant I had no way to get in contact with the mainland. I didn't know what else to do but to wait for the coverage to come back on my phone, which I intended to do until I heard the eeriest sound I have ever heard. It came from somewhere in the middle of the island. I can't really describe what it sounded like. It was incredibly loud. It reminded me of a scream of horror, but it also resembled the noise from an industrial machine. I didn't feel safe anywhere on the island anymore, and after I gathered some courage, I got up from the floor and decided to try and leave the island somehow. Perhaps by stealing a boat if I can find one. And now I'm sitting in the kitchen writing this down as fast as I can. I don't have much hope of success. I have written this message as a warning, but also as a chance to say my last words, in case my worst nightmares come true, although I guess it already has with the death of Cecilia, and I end up dying on this island. Tell my parents I always loved them. From Brick Island, Alexander T. Wess. That's it.
But that's obviously as someone who left it. I mean, it's
But this,
some
you
kind
think
of
this
prank.
is true?
Of course not. I mean, it's.
Wait, what the fuck was that? Did you hear that?
What do you mean?
What the fuck, man? Do you see?
No, but-
Shit, get the fuck away.
Come on. I can't move. No, I can't move for real. Help me!
Come on, man. Run, man.
What is that?